welcome to today's Abhigyan's Point. And what we are going to talk about is something very, very important for all of us to recognize and understand: the issue of health and public health. What I'm trying to do here is going to tell you about the kind of money that needs to be spent on public health vis-a-vis defense, because we all know that it was an invisible virus situation of corona which has literally brought the world to its knees. I must also point out this to you, that the Prime Minister himself in one of his addresses had said, Narendra Modi, that in India, we don't even have the same health infrastructure or the facilities as countries in the West, and still they're not being able to cope up with this at all. So please imagine what kind of situation we have of public health in the country. A little bit of research indicates, I'll give you an example, and these are very prosperous nations in their own way. Norway, for example, of its GDP, and I will keep repeating it, if you look at the calculation of its GDP, spends 10.45% on health. Norway, it's a very prosperous country. I have been there. Whereas defense is 1.6%. Now that's a huge difference. That's a difference of almost 9% higher. 9% higher is Norway's spend on public health than defense. Now that's very interesting. Of course, there are various other factors that are attached to it. Look at a country like Switzerland, that's 12.35% and just 0.7% on defense. Now these countries have different factors. I'm not saying let's look at a generic way of looking at these countries vis-a-vis India. The also very important point then to come back to the point of India is to understand that in India we are at 3.53% of the GDP and we are at 2.4% in terms of defense expenditure. Now that's very narrow. That's very less if you compare public health and defense. That's the point I'm trying to make. We'll also look at the other countries. Say for example, US, the defense expenditure is 3.2%. The most powerful country in the world, its defense expenditure is 3.2%. And do you know what is their public expenditure? Now, this is a shocking figure. This is a shocking percentage for a simple reason that we all know how bad America has been hit by coronavirus. So as compared to that, it is 17.6% of the GDP. America spends 17.6% of the GDP on public health, massively hit by corona, people sadly dying there, and only 3.2% on defense. India, on the other hand, spends 2.4% on defense and merely 3.53% on public health. That means the gap is just a little over 1%. Now, this is very, very alarming for India to look into the future, where I said the Prime Minister himself said that we don't have facilities as are available in the countries outside India. And I'm giving you a direct example of the difference between America, the most powerful, in fact, militarily also the most powerful nation, their defense expenditure versus public health, which is a difference of easily, if I look at the numbers, of over 14%. 14% higher is the expenditure of America as a country on public health than on defense. This is a point that I wanted to make. This is very, very important for us to understand as we look at India in a better and a healthier future from public's perspective, given the population that we have in this country.